Zoom meeting. And tonight's venue is, we're filming from up in the living room, dining room area. We just had our potluck dinner. I've talked about doing something different for some time. And tonight we're going to just sit and listen to an audio lecture of Dr. Baker. My regular person who does the filming is not here tonight. She's in Istanbul for the next 3 weeks. So I just want to kind of let everybody see who's here. And of course the dog is here. So what I'm going to do, let me just give you a quick outline of what's happening. Sarah, we talked about this when we were with Margaret the other day. I'm going to play the cassette tape that was made almost exactly 30 years ago. It was in March 14th of, March 14th, 1994. That's 30 years ago. And Dr. Baker was speaking in San Francisco at the Theosophical Society Lodge, very small building. The place was packed. The president of the lodge and his wife were sitting on either side of Dr. Baker, who was a large man, 6'2", 300 pounds. It was close quarters, and there was some point of tension in the lecture, which you'll hear. His lecture is the Karma and Future of the United States of America, which is appropriate for the time in which we're living. This is about an hour long. I think it might be just a little bit less. Hopefully we'll have some time for question and answers. But I want everybody, can you hear me okay? Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
So yeah. I'll try to get all this. I hope you can hear the lecture, okay? If you can't, let me know. See if I've got everything in here. What it's supposed to be. We'll have to, it's a two-sided tape, so we'll play the first half is about 30 minutes. And then the second half, of course, is another 20 or 25 minutes. So maybe a little less than an hour. But it was at this meeting where the president of the lodge got into an argument with Dr. Baker and claimed he was a racist. And it turned into a kind of a fiasco. And there were actually people standing outside the building trying to hear the lecture. And they told the president of the lodge to shut up because they were there to hear Baker. They didn't want to hear him. So maybe we can have some, but anyway, Baker was kicked out of the Theosophical Society because the president of the lodge called John Algeo, who was the newly elected president of the Theosophical Society in America. And Algeo, without doing any research, wrote a letter to Baker and told him he wasn't allowed to speak at any Theosophical societies in America. And I remember Baker asked me to write a letter to Algeo, which I did, stating that Douglas Baker was not a racist in any way, shape, or form. But there was a spat then that I think took place, if I remember correctly, with Algeo and Baker, communications, letters mostly. And Baker threatened to sue to get it to be allowed. And then he just dropped the whole thing. And Baker of course, did travel to America many, many times and did speak, but not at the Theosophical Society. The politicians within the rank and file of the Theosophical Society joined in on the side of the president of the Theosophical Society in San Francisco, and Algeo. And that's why I was essentially kicked out several times. They didn't tell me that directly to my face, but that was the deciding factor that was behind the scenes. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I don't know if you don't want to have to look at me all night long, so I'll put the camera up here. There's a picture of Baker there on the wall. Yeah, Tracy, if you could just move out a little bit high. Thank you. And, yeah, you're kind of in the way too. You can slide that way. This way, you can slide over here, Don. There you go. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Oops.
The Society was organized in New York, November 17, 1875, and has three avowed objects: to form a nucleus of the universal brotherhood.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
To encourage the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science, and to investigate the unexplained laws of nature and the powers latent in humanity. Tonight, we are honored to have Dr. Douglas Baker speaking on the karma and the future of the USA. Before Dr. Baker begins, may we have some meditation music?
This is the worst meditation music I've ever heard in my life. This is in San Francisco.
Can you dim the lights a little bit?
Lights a little different there.
Yes.
This is meditation music.
Thank you.
I have a talk tonight which will take just an hour, and so I'll have to move very quickly through it. There was a lot of speculation about the origin of the United States of America. As you probably know, the founding of the nation was decided upon and nursed through to completion by a group of operatists. They may have been Christian as well,
Freemasons.
but there was no flavor of Christianity in the setting up of the United States, except that it was said that God's will and good will was behind them. The date that I have chosen for the horoscope here tonight is from the Circle Book of Records, and it is blessed by the American Federation of Astrologers. I say that because there are quite a few charts in existence, and the one that I have chosen is very illustrative of the United States of America. The karma of the United States of America, of course, is short-term and long-term. In astrology, we always take the planet Saturn with its sorrow and suffering as the indicator of long-standing karma. Karma that goes back quite a considerable period of time in an ordinary person's life. When you come to study the karma of a nation, of course, you have to adapt. And the karma of the United States goes back to Rome, where the great being who took over the Byzantium part of Rome produced a wonderful, as you know, a wonderful culture there. Byzantium eventually reincarnated as the United States of America. And Rome itself reincarnated as the United Kingdom, as Great Britain. And so there are Roman influences, the way the country lives, its attitude to foreign nations, and so on. And we must expect that. The chart here shows Saturn in Scorpio in the fifth house. And this is the birth chart. And it indicates, of course, that much of the karma is from Scorpio, which is concerned with war. And the early karma of the nation, going right up to almost the present, has been greatly concerned with war, as you know. However, there are moderating influences which suggest that that karma is now coming to an end, and that there is, as we hope, a new age ahead of us. The United States' past, its karma, and its future is linked to the Negro race. The Negro race, of course, was transported from Central Africa. And it is indicated in the chart by Neptune, the fourth house. And it is a very watery sign, of course, if you're considering esoteric astrology.
Meaning emotion.
Very watery, it's in a watery house. And you will note that there is a link between Pluto in Capricorn and the 8th. The American Negro is, as a nation, may I use that word, as a group of individuals, as an ethnic group, is coming out of a very deep state of melancholia. Melancholia is something that frequently occurs where a person is uprooted, where a person perhaps comes from a foreign region and has been taken away from his roots. There can, unless there is some very quick supplementation of his culture, they can easily develop great depression and melancholia. And the Negro race is suffering from this and is therefore affected deeply by the melancholia, and therefore has great difficulty affecting the obtaining of energy. Melancholia, depression, is always associated with a falling away of vigor, of energy and vigor. And it is, therefore, part of a deep process which has affected the Negroes and the way they have blended in with the nation. We should understand this, and it should govern our attitudes when we sometimes lose have little patience for them. But
what about their patience for us?
Pardon?
What about their patience for us?
Are you asking it?
Do you mind if I interject with
No,
this?
I would rather you waited to the end of the lecture.
Well, then I'll let you.
The important thing here at the Negro race in the nadir of the chart, at the very depth of depression, is in trine to Pluto. Pluto in esoteric astrology is the ruler of Pisces, therefore very watery. Pluto also rules in esoteric astrology rivers and river banks. And Pluto in this chart is the Mississippi. And the trine between the Negro race, represented there by Neptune, and Pluto indicates a great affinity between these two. And therefore, an affinity of the Negro race with that place where they eventually found themselves, the Mississippi River. They established, of course, their own song. They established songs that were associated with the river. And so the river is a symbol of their rebirth and the cultivation of their new culture. And the two have gone well together. The short-term karma of the United States is contained in the chart by the presence of Mars. Mars rules short-term karma, and the short-term karma is fairly benign. It is good because it means that in its association with Libra, the sign of peace, there will be a long period of peace anticipated in the new age, because Aquarius is the dominating feature of the new age, which is upon us already. And of course, the ruler of the the ruler of Aquarius is Jupiter, and Aquarius is found in the midheaven with the United States' sun in Aquarius in the midheaven. So there is always going to be a benign outcome to the destiny of the nation. The nation itself is of Anglo-Saxon origin, of course, constantly being fed by new ethnic groups. One of its signs of greatness is the ability of the sun sign of the nation, that's its personality, to absorb these ethnic groups and to expand with them. And that is a very good sign indeed. We have to remember, of course, that the Anglo-Saxon subrace has a destiny of its own. The destiny is linked to its origin, which is, in this case, England. And England is ruled by Gemini, or is strong in rays associated with Gemini. And the two together are linked karmically, as you know, with Rome and Byzantium. So the ascendant in the chart is very, very prominent indeed. And this ascendant is, of course, in esoteric astrology, the indicator of the soul's purpose of the nation, the indicator of the soul's purpose in the ordinary individual personality, but also in the nation as we see it here. The background to the United States is related also, and to the Rosicrucian founders of the United States, is related to a pyramid which is truncated. It's truncated, which means that the top of the pyramid, the capstone of the pyramid, the important part of the pyramid, which gives it height and therefore perspective and vision, the top of the pyramid is missing. And in its place, there is an eye. In its place, as you know, if you look on your $1 bills, there is an eye, and the eye is placed in a position well above the truncation, but in the place of the capstone. The pyramid itself is situated in a desert region. It's situated in a desert region, and this desert region is, of course, the symbol of aridity, of spiritual aridity. And the destiny of the nation is tied up with its rising sign, the ascendant, which is Gemini now, and also with the symbol. Now, the symbol of Gemini ascendant indicates an interesting feature when we come to parse it in esoteric astrology. It reads two eyes to become one, two eyes to become one. And of course, the single eye there is the symbol of the third eye of occult teaching. When the two eyes are brought together in focus, which is the key to spiritual unfoldment, then it means that that eye is symbolized as being part of a focused event. In other words, if you like, it is part of the meditational process. What is missing, of course, is the top part of the pyramid, which we call a capstone. And in man, when he sits in Padmasana, he sits in such a way that you could take a yardstick and run it through the bony prominences of the individual, and he forms a pyramid, but a pyramid that is not complete. Very few individuals have aroused the chakras, the force centers in the head. And therefore, man at this stage is the spiritual embryo. He is a spiritual being in the process of developing, and he has no head, he has no capstone. So the destiny of the nation is, amongst other things, of course, is to put the capstone back. To put the capstone back, if it was ever there, and to therefore open up higher parts of the nation, that the part represented in the crest of the nation is vacant in certain respects, and it is necessary for the country to develop its spiritual values. And the third eye is the symbol of focus and spiritual growth. So the rising sign is illustrative of this. The sixth ray personality of the United States is the ray, of course, of devotion and idealism. And it is a very religious country, and the sixth ray is very religious too. Of course, religion in other parts of the world has taken very severe pounding. It's taken a very severe pounding, but the essential nature of the country is still Christian, and that is how it was originally planned. Now, the sixth ray has many qualities, not just devotion and idealism, but one of the supreme qualities of this nation is its capacity, its practice, its personality quality, remembering that the sixth ray rules the personality of the United States, is the capacity not to look back on the past, not to look back. And in this way, and in this respect, very much like the myth in the Bible, or the legend, if you like, of Lot and his wife. And Lot would not look back at the disasters behind the pair of them. And Lot, did look back and was destroyed, turned into salt, as it were, a pillar of salt. And being an independent, neutral observer, and able to look at the country rather dispassionately, I note that that is one of its extraordinary capacities, that it can, if you like, walk away from disasters. Gemini rules walking, and Gemini rules away. and Germany on the ascendant, therefore, walks away from. Now, you've obviously met people in your life who walk away from their disasters and just try again something new. So that indicates something of the quality of the United States. Now, there are other nations who don't do this. Spain, for instance, is crystallizing all the time. Spain looks back to her past, her great exploratory work in the New World, to her devotion to the Catholic religion, to her line of kings and so on. Britain, to a great extent, does the same. But this country does not, and therefore is not in the process of crystallizing, as is Spain and Austria. If you're interested in some of the references here, the best book to look at is The Destiny of the Nations by Alice Bailey. The Destiny of the Nations. The pyramid itself, of course, is a beacon. The pyramid itself is a beacon because the eye symbolizes the light within the beacon. The New Testament, Matthew 6, verse 22, as you well know, says, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy body shall be full of light." And so one of the soul's purposes of the United States is to act as a beacon of light to other nations. I want to just continue a little further with regard to this part of the subject and point out that the Anglo-Saxon subrace is in a very, very important position at the moment. We're like a brooder house, both in other parts of the Anglo-Saxon dominions, if I can use such a poor word, and here in the sunny parts of the United States, especially California and New Mexico and Florida and places like that in the South. It's important in time and in place because there is being fashion now in these places, in these states, which are exposed greatly to the sun. And also in Australia, less so in New Zealand, but in South Africa as well, the exposure to the sun of the Anglo-Saxon subrace is producing a phenomenon that has been planned. Through the ages, and there is a very definite purpose to this. That in the Anglo-Saxon race, subrace, if you like, nothing disastrously ethnic about this, there is a development of the etheric body. You know what the etheric body is. The etheric body is actually, the etheric body of man is, of course, a structure that vitalizes his nervous system. The etheric body of man is very important in the development of the new race. This new race will be called the sixth subrace. The fifth subrace is our own, the Anglo-Saxon. And the sixth subrace is the race that this type will give birth to. And they will have greatly strengthened etheric bodies. The nadis, the tiny little filaments that pass the prana linked to the strong sunlight, the tiny little filaments will be expanded by this process of submitting a sensitive skin to the sunlight. In Australia, the advent of sunburn and the development of cancers of the skin is of serious concern, and the country has grasped the nettle. They smear themselves with cream. If any of you watch cricket, I doubt it. But if you do see the Australians on the cricket field, their faces are sometimes practically covered with cream in an endeavor to cut down skin cancer in the country. But all the time, the bodies of the etheric body are growing, expanding, giving greater capacity to take out prana from the sunlit atmosphere. The effect of this will produce new forms, as it were. And these forms will bear the brunt of the coming or the development of the sixth subrace. They will have eventually to be isolated if history and theosophy is true. They will eventually have to be isolated in various ways. If I could just expand a moment on that. For instance, in the region of Perth, in Western Australia, you have a very typical position in which the Anglo-Saxon subrace there is isolated. In the west, there is 3,000 miles of the Indian Ocean. In the east, there is 3,000 miles of desert. And there is this narrow strip where this population runs along the coastline of Australia, and they are subjected to sun, and they are producing an extraordinarily lovely elements of a subrace. We're talking, of course, about things that will eventually, thousands of years from today, but they must have a beginning, and they will be constantly aided. This country as well, same phenomenon is occurring, the strengthening of the etheric body. Now, the whole matter is one of great interest, especially to me, being an anatomist, and the studying of the features of the new race, the shape of the head, the comparison of the legs to the arms, the legs tending to be smaller and shorter, and the arms tending to be longer, and so on, is a very fascinating work. But you can, of course, study all this in C.W. Leadbeater's work and in Annie Besant's work. So this is the new subrace. Now we must look at the progress chart of the United States. I have it back. Thank you, Miss Joe. Bit of tape for the board, please. Now, in esoteric astrology, and I'm sure you know that the interpretation tonight is basically esoteric astrology. I'm going to need a scribe, and it'll have to be Joe. And if it's possible to put that chart somewhere else, this one, so that I can use the. Well, if you were to move, we would be able to put the chart.
You know, I was sitting there and I moved over here. So I think this is going to be good for tonight. You have about 25 minutes.
Young lady, I don't like your tone. I've come 7,000 miles to get this talk. And I've been told that I can only use an hour on it because somebody's getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to.
No, excuse me, sir. The reason was
I don't care what the reason is. I was invited a long time ago.
100 years we've had an hour-long Saturday night meeting. That's our procedure. If you think I'm being disrespectful, I apologize, but frankly, the tone with which you're addressing a member of the board of directors of this society is rather.
Common courtesy says that if you invite a lecturer.
Common courtesy describes people as Afro-Americans, not Negroes.
You're trying to teach me theosophy, young man.
No, I'm not. I'm just making a
No, you're making a mess of it.
Why don't you sit here and let the president sits there. I'm sorry. We are hosting this event. I agree with him. I agree with him.
Hands up those who agree with me.
You're not that important. If you're
No, I'm not.
Excuse me, I am chairing this meeting.
Frankly.
Please,
I'm here to listen to him, not to you.
okay. Okay, if you would like to speak. You are our guests here, okay? You are guests here. What, it would be nice if you were gracious guests.
There's not gracious. The church here is not important. You can sit here. I want to get my. I don't care for president. If you want to bring election, that's more important to us. I don't agree. Let it happen, let it come around. I'll chair the meeting. Is there an array for the blackboard?
And she wouldn't do it.
So that's where the.
No, that's half of it. That's half of it.
The astrology that day must have been fascinating for that many people to get that fired up and so off center.
Everybody was
Over nothing.
Okay.
Over nothing. Can you move? No, I moved already. Excuse me?
I came 7,000 miles to
Right.
move you.
Tracy,
Yeah.
we lost our,
Wow.
Uh-oh.
whatever was down there before.
I'm flabbergasted.
That's unusual.
That these
We're still on.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's
Oh,
nobody,
trigger.
the people are
Nobody-
doing.
Everybody was triggered.
You know, he just told me to move. Well, he knew there was.
There we
something.
go.
It was brewing. Yeah, yeah.
We
but
just
there
have
was a
one
lot
person
still.
online.
So what he did.
So I don't know.
Nancy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Nancy.
that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So
wow.
we'll play the other, we'll play the other half of the tape now.
Well, that's the word
somebody
that's
did,
been
and then they brought it up. So, okay.
That's been used like forever to describe.
David.
the race at the time.
When they-
30 years.
When
I
they
mean,
got
not
rid of
really
Baker,
It's
but he
just-
went back to England and set up his own thing there, right?
Well, he already had that going on.
That's why they invited him. They wanted him.
What was that, the
And
Theosophical
everybody
Society
wanted
of
to
England?
listen
What?
to Baker.
Did he have the
But they-
Theosophical Society of England?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Did they pay him to?
So he
come?
just kept
Did
on
he
going.
do it on his own
Yeah.
dime?
he did it on his own dime.
Oh.
But they asked him to come and he paid his own expenses.
Why don't you do that?
Okay, here's part two,
Language.
part two. Just
Well, it's ignorance.
pay close attention. Well, the thing happened, what happened? The guy that was the president, the next day called John Algeo, who was a buffoon. And he told Algeo Douglas Baker was here and he's a racist from South Africa. Well,
Oh
he
my
grew
God.
up in South Africa. Baker did as a little
He's not
boy.
racist.
Yeah.
He's explaining different.
But what happened, but what
racist.
happened was people like Maria Parison down at the Detroit Lodge, who now lives out in California, got involved in the politics of it. See,
Yeah.
didn't know anything about it. And she took a side. And that's why she was always adamant against me and Baker, because
Because he's racist.
while she was living in California on a Theosophical dime.
yeah, living like the Queen of Egypt.
Yeah.
Oh, he was
On
using the
Theosophy's dime. She lives out at what is it, Point Loma? Out
The retreat out in California.
yeah, Ojai area. She
And she
lives.
lives at the retreat
Yeah,
for free.
yeah. Cost them $1 million a year to maintain the property. They could sell it for $50 or $60 million, and the Theosophical Society would have more money and they knew what to do with. But she has to live there, so they can't sell it because Maria Parison from Detroit has to live there because she thinks she's the doyenne of
And everyone else
Theosophy.
thinks it too?
Yeah.
Is
Well,
she
they just
still
go
alive?
along with it. Yeah. Yeah, it's just terrible. It's just, so this is what happens in the Piscean age. All these things you see, it's like Baker said, the society hasn't been energized in, well, now 90 years.
Yeah, I.
See,
You can tell just by the
Attracted
people
to
that.
it.
yeah. And so the
Yeah.
quality of the people that have taken over the society are inferior people. Sorry to say that, but it's the way things happen. So they got all these people that are running the Theosophical Society, don't know anything about it, you know, don't know their own teachings, and they're in charge. So it's not Theosophy that's bad. It's the
Administration,
people,
current administration.
yeah, who are influenced by all
Sounds
the
familiar?
what Blavatsky would call black magic psychology. Okay, here goes.
It's infiltrated a lot of the
Yeah,
groups.
Institution.
I mean, yes.
They all do that. See, they're all,
And
it's the end of the
elevator
Piscean
groups,
age, and they're all dying off,
I
and they're
mean,
all,
they
and
just
if it's
turn
true as
dark.
above, so below. If it's true in the macrocosm, it's true in the microcosm.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on.
Like children.
God,
And
that-
more
yeah,
children.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you ask someone to move.
When they had somebody that.
They give you an ad.
They just don't even know what they have.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, it's on.
Wow.
Be coming up in just a minute.
I know. People that.
So that's why they always treated me like, yeah, blow that cannon.
Think.
Now, in esoteric
Jim
astrology,
Baker, he just
we
starts out
have evolved a method known as PART,
unscathed.
by which it is possible to understand the astrology very, very quickly and directly. However, as you probably know, esoteric astrology is based on the proposition that there are 12 planetary rulers. And these 12 planetary rulers allow for the inclusion of the great expansions of human consciousness which have occurred in the last 100 years. Women have been liberated. Women in the age of Victoria were very, very limited in their ability to reach out and express themselves. Today, that's not true. Today, women are entering every aspect of society, and their consciousness has grown enormously. And it is a very special consciousness to which there is added love wisdom. Now, in other fields, medicine, for instance, tremendous extensions of and changes in medicine. If you take the English language, you'll find that 600, 700,000 words have been added to it just from chemistry alone, from organic chemistry, 700,000 compounds. And so everything is growing and expanding tremendously. And because of this, there are indications that the old rulership can't contain all this mass development of consciousness. And so what we have done in astrology is to follow Alice Bailey and to give each sign of the zodiac its own ruler. May I ask for the sheet to be handed out, Joe, on the rulerships? Is he here? He's not here. Did you bring that little stack? On the refrigerator. They're handing out. You know them there? No, coming up. Anyway, let us take from the chart that we have here. Let us take from the chart that we have here. This is progress to 94. I wanted the original one. Please about it. No, thank you.
Here's
Yes,
a
it's probably
progress
the
chart.
conference.
Year
Easy to read that.
2100.
Is that 94? There's a third chart.
Got two charts. There's
Anyway, in our horoscope of the United States, we have, for instance, Mars
There's three.
in Gemini in the first,
94,
Mars in Gemini in the first, and we find that this particular aspect can be interpreted, Army, Air Force, Army, Air Force, always on maneuvers, always on maneuvers. Now, what we do with that, you see, is to put the Army symbol, which is Mars, and the Air Force, which is Air is Gemini, and Force is Mars, and always is the first house on maneuvers. And maneuvers is the three combined, Mars and Gemini, and the first. Now we call that parsing. We call that parsing. And it means that nobody can fuss around with the aspect and interpret it in their own, shall we say, miasmic way. They have to relate it to the astrology. If you join the American Federation of Astrologers, you'll find that you have to sign a paper saying that you will not practice other methods of psychic capacities, but only the astrological part. So we have to be very careful with that. And the whole process can be parsed in this way. We have a dictionary of 100,000 terms, words, interpretations, and each item in the dictionary can be parsed and related to the astrological glyphs. I'm going to read you some of the things that you can do this to out of the chart. One of them is an antagonistic black population is emerging from deep melancholia. And that is what I explained at the beginning of the lecture. The state violence with a lack of ethics in handling the workless. A nation in a shattering attack. The nation is in a shattering attack at Pearl Harbor from the air. All these are in the chart of the United States of America. The parsing of it will eventually, of course, be available. I shall be presenting this at the festival in Anaheim.
I was there, yeah.
And so you can go through the chart of the
Then he
United
was at
States
my house
of its
right
birth
after that.
time. You
That's
can
when I
then
got the
take
thing.
the chart and you can progress the planets to 1994, this year. And there are subtle changes in the destiny of the nation. You must understand that it is a huge organization, and the tiny fractions of movement are not taken into account when they reach a national level. There is another one here.
You want to describe for me?
Joseph. Oh, yes, I wanted him to pause, actually. Can you pause for me, Joe? Thank you. Thanks. Just write down these words as put the aspect up first. Mars and Gemini in the first. Trying to moon in Aquarius in the ninth. How many of you have done some astrology? That's not going to. All right.
This isn't gonna work too well, is it?
You're
Standing right in front of
it.
I'm standing right in front of it.
They can't see it.
Oh, it's okay, when you move later,
Yeah,
we'll
let's do
catch
something
up.
like that.
Right. Yes, all right. Can you put this down, please? The two English-speaking allies of World War II, ... Their youths,
Give me that, I'm still on English speaking allies.
allies of World War II.
They can take those astrological aspects and turn them into sentences. It's parsing.
In a holy war reached Germany. Now we'll pause. Joe can pause this on his own, so can any of my students.
You sharing, sorry, I'm still on.
Sharing in a holy war reached Germany. Of course, this refers to World War II, and it's in the horoscope of the United States. We'll just do one pause in here. So above 2, Gemini, which rules twins,
You're using Gemini, right?
And English is Gemini, yes, speaking. Gemini is speaking as well. So I've deliberately chosen the phraseology of two English-speaking nations, which is the rising sign. And Gemini in the first means two English-speaking nations. And therefore, it is the esoteric teaching that these two will need each other through the development of the years. Going on allies,
Using friends, Aquarius. Oh. No, I don't have it.
friends, sorry. The two English-speaking friends, which is Aquarius, of World War II. The world comes in the 9th house of esoteric astrology, and war is Mars there, and Gemini is 2, World War II. Continuing, over there is the 9th house, Sagittarius, 9, put 9 up there. There, youths, Moon and Aquarius. The Moon rules youths and maidens who are not married. Youths sharing.
What did the try?
Dividing, it should be.
Yeah, well, I've got Gemini.
Right, that's all right. In a holy war, holy is Mars, holy is the 12th house, the house of religion, and war is Mars. Reach, 9th house, reach for Germany with Mars. The point I'm making here is that it is possible to extract a whole list, 100 or 200 factors from the United States chart, and you can, even as they are progressed up to the year 2100, you can parse them and so that there can be no breaking a corner off the pyramid, as it were. Well, now, I think that I'd like to answer questions.
Yeah.
I'd like to answer questions, and perhaps you'd like to put them to me about the destiny of the United States. Yeah.
When you refer to Mars representing the short-term karma, what would be short-term? 100 years?
No, it would be in terms of lives, the lives lived. In other words, if the karma has come from your last life, or maybe the second to last life, or if it is from this life, that's short-term karma.
Oh.
If it is long-term karma, going way back 10, 20 lives, then that comes under Saturn. But you know, Saturn is long and cruel and heavy and dragged and is chronic. All right.
Right. So that's why the sun and moon in Aquarius could indicate a somewhat peaceful or optimistic future than in the long term.
That's right.
Okay.
But of course, Mars has some very specific applications today. Mars and Uranus is accidents, and accidents in cars, motor car accidents. And that is one way in which violent karma, which is Mars, violent karma works its way out today. In the Middle Ages, it would perhaps have worked out in the 100 Years' War. But today, the young people have violent karma, and they have cars, and the car accidents provide an opportunity for violent karma to be worked out, because, as I say, Uranus is the motor car, and Mars is accidents. And that is also the combination of accident proneness. Accident proneness. You all know what accident proneness means. You get an individual in a family of, say, 4 or 5 boys and girls, and there's one child in the family always gets into trouble. It's always this one. And so we say that where Mars is in poor aspect to Uranus, that this indicates violence, indicates also accidents. I have these two conjunct in my own horoscope, and I have in my early part of my life, which is when Mars really goes to work, a lot of violence perpetrated there. So Mars and Uranus are accident prone. It's good to know that from a psychological point of view. If you have a child who is accident prone, instead of castigating him every time, smacking him and so on, remember that that child needs support. He can't help the fact that he has violent karma coming from 1 or 2 lives back. And so he naturally, the karma works out in him, and it is a great help if the parents understand this, that the boy has violent karma and that he needs some support so that he can bear that karma. I think it's a very important psychological point. Yes.
Is anything unusual going to happen in 1998? Large shift of any kind?
The indications for the end of the century are very, very clear, and that is that the hierarchy is externalized. The hierarchy is a group of high beings who have a plan for the planet and act on it. And at the end of the bimillennium, which is the year 2000, and therefore the present years leading up to it, the hierarchy is materialized, it's being externalized. If we can't recognize them moving amongst us, that's our difficulty, isn't it? So if you ask me about a specific event then, 1998 and so on, my answer to that is that the most important events of these years is the externalization of the hierarchy.
Have you ever compared this astrology to Chinese astrology? I just dabbled a little bit. I'm not an astrologer, but I read a Chinese astrology.
My dear, I can barely keep my head up with Western astrology, and I wouldn't dream of delving into it, but I've heard plenty good reports of Chinese astrology, especially when it's used with acupuncture.
They have been very specific that in the years of the monkey, there's always Ryan.
No,
So 800
Overwhelmed.
years.
it's overwhelmed
Okay.
with the study of esoteric
Like
astrology.
assassinated, that was the year of the monkey.
I have got the Los Angeles riots down here, and the indications are that there will be a repeat of it in other main cities, but that lies some years ahead, and it's inevitable.
According to Chinese
29
astrology,
years.
this country was created in the year of the monkey. And the very opposite of the monkey is the tiger, and the tiger represents revolution. As some other sign that would be opposite would represent maybe something else. But to the monkey, the tiger is
That's interesting because in esoteric astrology, Cancer is the sign of China, and it's also the sign of the monkey. So there, there's thinking that would Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about whether or not the number of seven-place souls is increasing toward this?
Are percentages which we can give for the number of souls incarnating and their qualities. At the moment, the percentage of second-ray souls on the ray of love wisdom is immense, and probably 60% of us here in this room have second-ray souls. The sign, the seventh ray, of course, of ceremonial and order, has been very prominent in association with the sixth ray and the Catholic Church. The indications, however, are that there is going to be a tremendous incursion of the fourth ray of art and harmony through conflict, and that it will begin almost coinciding with the millennium, and that this ray will develop to its full extent by the year 2025. And by then, it looks as if there will be, or through that, a renaissance, another renaissance in Europe. That there will be a repeat of the Greek city-state and the Renaissance city-states. And with this advent, there will be the flourishing of art again. And if that is true, then the seventh ray would have to be very close by.
Well, right, because service can come through the fourth ray a little bit, because today, I'll tell you, I can't find a seven-ray soul with six-ray personality blend.
Well, we have located some. But Joe will be able to give you the percentage, it's not a chart. Questions? Questions, yeah. About
This sentence that you parsed,
yes.
did you develop the sentence out of the combination of those factors of Mars and Gemini first house, Moon, Aquarius, and Mars? Or is this a sentence out of your
But are you talking about esoteric astrology with their rulers?
This is a good way to start out 2024 for elections.
In esoteric astrology, the moon rules the sixth house, or lord of the sixth house. And the sixth house is the house of the maiden, Virgo the maiden, and therefore maiden men as well. So the moon rules youth, and these Aquarius is numbers of. Aquarius is always groups of individuals. So the translation there is Moon and Aquarius, youths with an S on the end.
So you did derive the sentence from the understanding of the elements in the chart.
I took that out first.
But the
I
sentence,
took the aspect out. Sorry.
you wrote the sentence, you derived the sentence from the understanding.
We
of the
take that
elements
out
in the chart.
first, which is the aspect. Then we translate it into the English language. And in the dictionaries that we have, the first dictionary, volume 1 of the dictionary, is English into astrology. And the second and the third volumes are astrology into English. And that's how it's sort of planned. And that's how this is done. We think that I won't be able to do the research work, but we think that if this proves to be the way of doing it, that there will be a lot of possibilities of prediction, which don't seem to be now, not at the
Predictive
national level.
astrology.
Alice Bailey contributed so much, it would be a pity if that wasn't expressed in a very finite and practical aspect.
What would you say that gift was?
Well, I wasn't going to raise it, but as you've asked the question, I'll answer it. The gift that the United States is giving to its population is this, that just as there is evil or difficult karma in the world, and there's a preponderance of difficult karma, because the Lord of the planet has a very heavy karma, and we have to share it with him. But there is also good karma. There's also very good karma. And the gift of the United States is that it's supplied, it has built, it has produced, it has provided a place where people with good karma can take a rest, where they have an opportunity to be able to express their good karma. The country has created, after great difficulties, of course, a high standard of living. It has created the biggest democracy in the world. It has produced benign conditions here, which those souls who have had many lives on earth and have good karma can inhabit. The opposite to that, as I take it from Bailey, the opposite to that is that the Jewish race is a race which has the heaviest karma of all the nations. And that this heavy karma means that the Jewish race provides a karmic clearinghouse where people who have got so much heavy karma that they've got to rid themselves of it and work it off very soon, otherwise it becomes impossible, that their higher selves choose an incarnation in the Jewish race, because in the Jewish race they're bound to have an opportunity to work off heavy karma because of the circumstances of its history, the exodus and the
Prejudice.
atrocities and so on. You understand that?
Yeah.
In a karmic clearinghouse where there is an opportunity for those with heavy karma to take an incarnation in a Jewish, it has nothing to do with ethics at all. To take a body in a race that is working off heavy karma continuously and therefore to have an opportunity to work it out. You were going to ask a question.
Yeah, but about the American Indians. The American Indians.
Yes. What about them? Yes, of course, there is a very heavy karma over that. What happened to the American Indian was, of course, they were one of the most psychic races the world has ever known. And what happened to them was that they were wiped out, of course, but the Indian chiefs knew it. They knew that it was coming, as you know, and they were very spiritual, very psychic, and they had access to the astral world, and they were able to prepare a compartment in the astral world, which had all the joys of Red Indian life in North America, where there were streams and the happy hunting grounds. They created this compartment there. The Red Indians began to be slaughtered, and the young braves and their families going into the astral world were led by these Red Indian initiates to this
Happy hunting
compartment.
grounds.
They've been there about 100 years, and they are now coming back into incarnation. But they're not coming back in North America. I think we can guess why. But they are coming back in large numbers into Europe. And you're getting them appearing there on the soccer terraces, where it's openly admitted that they have tribal warfare there and tribal carryings on there. Also, the way that they cut their hair with Mohican haircuts and paint their faces and so on. So it's a happy outcome, and we hope that the karma will be completely resolved. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me.
Considering the circumstances, we will not have our usual ending to this meeting. David, no. David, did you have an announcement you wish to make?
Just if anyone did any failure and so forth. So our full new meditations and next one will be for 5, and that's Saturday the 26th of this month at 7:30 at the current church.
Thank you. So
Who is the Lord of this planet? Who is the Lord of this planet? Lord of the world, the ancient of days, the silent watcher, Senate Commander. Senate Commander. Sonata Ebenezer. Oh,
Well, he was doing a lot of things himself. It's just this was just a woman. That was years ago. 40 years ago. Kind of interesting conversations going on.
There's a law being responded against.
Okay, well, we'll end it there. Anyway, so the outcome of it was, as I said earlier, this guy that was the president, and it was actually his wife, was the co-chair, called John Algeo, the president of the American branch of the Theosophical Society, the next day, and complained about Baker. And so Algeo, without asking any questions, forbid Baker to speak at any Theosophical Lodge in America. Baker's still the most popular speaker in England and in Europe.
It's just so petty. I don't get it. Like
You have to understand the people.
The people just shows you the screwed up people. See?
Have you been down to Detroit?
it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, go down to the Detroit Lodge and see what they're like down there.
No different.
Yeah,
there's
You
the
know, I was
cancel
bad
for
on,
life.
I mean, literally, he said like 12 words.
The cancel
Kicked him
culture.
out for life.
You know, watch your program.
I wrote a letter then to
Oh,
Algeo,
man.
and I know Scott Olson, while Baker was still alive, he had the occasion to run into Algeo and told him, hey, look, you should have never banned Baker and let him speak in America. And of course, Algeo was just, couldn't admit that he was wrong, so he just stayed the way it was. I wrote a nice letter to Algeo and explained, Baker, my affiliation with Baker, that I'd known him for many years.
It didn't matter.
And no, because they'd already
They
done it,
decided.
so
Yeah.
they couldn't undo it.
You
To
can't
undo
admit
it
that
is
they're
to
wrong.
admit that you were wrong.
Exactly.
But you know, listening to them, there's nothing that he said was anything racist.
No.
So I don't know how they
Well,
can conclude
because
that.
what they said, they called them
Negroes.
Negroes.
He called
Oh,
the
just the
blacks.
word, they had a problem with the
They had a
word?
problem with
But
that.
that was the word that
Word
was
Negro?
used.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't,
Oh,
See, my father say they called those blackies or darkies.
Yeah.
Darkies.
Yes,
I mean,
you know,
I guess maybe the words have changed. And it being from England, they understand different. America is, it's like, it was black, then it became black Americans, American black,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, right.
It keeps on changing,
Yeah.
But that was not hardly anything to worry about.
I
It was
know.
not such a big thing.
Yeah, I know.
It just erupted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
See, Baker's got a first-rate personality, and first-rate soul.
Yeah, he's
And
not
I-
gonna have any patience for any of that bullshit.
No, he
doesn't.
No, he did not.
was short on. Yeah, yeah.
He said, the guy said, young man, you're gonna teach me theosophy.
I know, right? That's so good. So good.
So that's it. So that's,
Thank you.
it-
That was
it's-
that was good. That was good.
and so that's why when
Boy,
I
I wish
moved,
you would have done more parsing for like this time. You know. But we gotta read it. Yeah. Cause like Europe, the way he said some nice stuff about Europe, like it's not in good shape right now.
Yeah.
You're gonna have this renaissance, like I'm not seeing it,
it's
I'm not seeing it.
harmony
No.
through conflict.
Yeah,
It's the-
yeah, that's
it's
right.
the
We're
fourth
in it.
ray.
We're in it.
It's the
So
fourth
deeply.
ray.
Now put it out there and open.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you pick the thing to find the chart? Would it be like 1776 or what did they?
What?
Not progressive charts. So
Well, I
what
mean,
they
how do you
did,
find a nation chart? Is what I'm saying. How do you start out?
The neighbor.
Oh,
because you
from,
have to know when they were established.
The
When,
4th of
when,
July.
when did the
July.
United
4th
States?
of July.
4th of July.
1776, Philadelphia,
So that's the first
That's
day.
it.
Look at it.
Gemini ascendant.
And in
So
Philadelphia.
that's it.
Location. Right.
But I wasn't.
See, some people have different ascendants for the US charts.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, the one that works is Gemini.
Well, just saying, yeah, I've seen different.
See, a
ones.
lot of them, they use Leo and they have a whole bunch of different, but the one that works the best is Gemini ascendant. And he explained it, why it does. See, it's what you do. It's like reverse engineering an automobile. You know, you reverse engineer the horoscope. And you can find, if somebody doesn't know their time of birth, if you want to put a week's worth of work into it, you could probably get real close to it. Other than doing a solar chart, which I have a great deal of success with solar charts, but if you do a kind of an analysis of the aspects things that happened in the person's life, you can formulate the ascendant. And that's what Baker did with the United States of America, a rectified chart.
By identifying events in their life, you're saying.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he said that America was founded on Christian values.
It was founded on mystical, esoteric values of the Freemasons. That's what it was founded on.
Washington and all that. Yeah.
Tracy, you get us out of there. Yes.
But I thought they were Christian too.
Well, they
Or that
were.
There were
They
Christian
were, but
values in the
they were Christians, but they didn't. It wasn't Christian
in the
orientation. It was Masonic.
that I understand.
It was esoteric, and the masters were involved.
Yes.
You just have to get out of the Zoom meeting.
So the masters aren't Christian?
No.
No, no, masters aren't any religion. They're
Okay, so did anybody that's on the Zoom meeting right now, Audrey and Nancy, do you have any questions or anything you want to ask David before we close?
No, I just want to say thank you and good night.
Thank you very much.
okay, Nancy. Thanks.
Happy New Year.
That was Audrey.
Happy New Year.
Nancy?
I have something.
Sure, go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, this is Audrey.
Oh, this is Audrey.
Audrey.
Okay. You're both unmuted, so I couldn't tell.
No problem. So two things. Number one, he talked about the Jews have the most karma.
Heavy karma.
Yeah. So is that why, we hear about it in history with Hitler and then what's going on today in the world in Israel?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then, Margaret has always mentioned the year 2025.
Right.
What's going to happen? I mean, 2025 is next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, presumably.
The spiritual hierarchy meets in the Waisak, which is in the early May of 2025, and they're going to energize certain aspects of society and nations, and it will open the groundwork and set the course of direction for the next 2,000 years.
Even better.
If it happens.
If it happens, yeah.
Why is there? Yeah. Right.
Because
Because
there's
there's still too much.
too much bad stuff in the world right now. Things
pedophilia
like
and
child
sex
pornography, pedophilia, all that has to be cleared up between now and 2025.
And they're starting to expose it now too, so it's coming to the forefront.
So, another day.
Yeah, they'll delay it. They'll delay the spiritualizing of the Aquarian age.
Well, did you say that then they would do it in Europe?
Yeah, it would happen in Europe. And basically, in the lecture, that's what he's talking about. But the plan of the hierarchy was to use America.
I know.
To use the Catholic.
I know. That's in daily. USA is the Catholic.
For the beginning of the Aquarian age, which has really already began, Blavatsky said, in the year 1900.
Because he did say we were in there, somewhere in there, he said that.
I think John Algio should have handled it differently.
Yeah, he's dead now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll suffer the karma from it, just like Maria Harrison
Oh my
will suffer the karma of having thwarted the greatest teacher of the esoteric wisdom of the 20th century. Think of that.
Yeah. Well,
Cut their
when
nose off.
they were going through this, I think he should have done this. John Algio should have got together with both of them and talked to this president and his wife and said, John, these people have something to tell you. And then you say, would you express to
That's what
Douglas
should
Baker
happen.
what's your
They
problem?
were
Then
no
you should have
friends.
listened to this tape.
Yeah, and
You
and
know.
and then they would have listened together,
No.
and Douglas Baker would have time to explain it, and John Algeo would say, okay, looks like we had a little misunderstanding, let's patch it up. And they could just work it out that way. And that's just simple supervision. You know, I became a supervisor, I had training. When you have problems with an employee complaining about another employee, you bring the person in and you say, what are you complaining about? And it's okay, let's get it straightened out right
Yeah,
now.
well, Algeo didn't
I
do
would
that.
just go get the other.
But you're talking about a Ray
Yeah.
one